Greetings and welcome to all of you who are viewing this with us. Today, the Adrian Dominican Sisters invite you to a conversation that we're going to have with our Sister Janet Marie Fulgenzi, who was also known as, your religious name was Janet Marie, wasn't it? That's right. Okay, we'll hear about that later. So I am Sister Peg O'Flynn, and I'll be having this conversation with Janet. And we just invite you to sit back and enjoy listening to what she has to say. Janet has ministry and resides in Saginaw, Michigan, and that's where she is at this time. Okay, so Janet, the floor is yours. You can go on with the show and tell us, who is Janet Marie Fulgenzi?
Well, thank you, Peg. And thank everyone who is helping with this endeavor.
Yeah.
You get special thanks for that. Well, I'm very blessed to be here alive. And I come from a wonderful family, on my mother's side Irish, and on my father's side Italian. And I just couldn't have had more good fortune than that. Both come from very loving families, very welcoming families, food in abundance on both sides. And then the miracle that my mother and father met. My mother, Janet Frances Fulgenzi, McLaughlin Fulgenzi, was from Carlton, Michigan. She was born there, Carlton, Monroe. And her mother was the oldest of 13 children.
Oh my.
And so I have abundant great aunts and uncles on that side. Mm-hmm. And then my mother was the first grandchild. She had one sister, and my sweet grandma I knew for years. And at points she lived with us, Irene Condren McLaughlin. And my mother had one sister, my Aunt Kathleen. And then my grandma's husband, my grandfather, died when my mother was 5 and my aunt was 3. He got typhoid, and in about 3 days he was gone.
Wow. So
that changed that life. My grandmother went back to the farm with my mother and her sister. And then my father was born in Riverton, Illinois, and he was the 5th of 6 children.
Okay.
His mother and father were Italian immigrants. My grandfather, we called him Tata, came over from Calaggia, Italy, a little town in the mountains east of Rome, about 2 hours east of Rome. And he settled in Riverton, and he brought his wife, my mamo, my grandmother. And so my father was born here. An aunt and an uncle were born in Italy. That aunt died early, and my father is the 5th of 6 living children. So my dad grew up in Riverton, graduated from high school, and then his brothers and brothers-in-law started a grocery business in Detroit.
Okay.
On the east side. And my mother was going to go to nursing school after graduating from high school, but she got typhoid and was delayed a year, but got through it. So she was going to go to Toledo to nursing school. As things changed, she went to Detroit to St. Joseph Mercy Nursing School. So my father is a young man at the grocery store delivering groceries. It's where you went to people's homes and all that. And one of his brothers-in-law, my Uncle Nick, said, "Do you want to do this the rest of your life or something else?" So he got my dad in the car and took him over to the University of Detroit. So they sign in. My dad goes to school. He gets his bachelor's degree. He went back to the store. He didn't know what to do next. So he went back and got his master's degree. It took a year. So he's still doing groceries. So then my Uncle Nick took him over to Wayne State Medical School.
Okay.
My father loved school, but But anyway, my uncle took him there. So he graduated from there as a physician and surgeon, general practice. That's what you
Okay.
did in those days.
Mhm.
And he did his residency at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital in Detroit. So that's how the two of them
Got together.
got
Okay.
together. And so my sister was born there. She was 2.5 years older than I was, and I was born there. And so was my younger brother. The hospital is no longer there, but we came to life there in the midst of people who knew my mom and dad, and it just was wonderful. And those were the Mercy Sisters, Farmington Mercy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, we're at St. Catherine Parish on the east side of Detroit, and relatives everywhere, laughter everywhere, playing cards everywhere, and welcoming people. My parents always, everyone was welcome. And I never remember them being critical. They were very accepting people. And that could have been the nursing and the physician background.
Mhm.
Then they could work together. So my sister went to St. Catherine grade school, and then we were 2 years apart there. And she was very good in school. And when she got to 8th grade, she said to my mom and dad, I'd like to be more challenged. So my mom said to my dad, we have to do something about this. So my dad was driving by Dominican High School. He asked
Okay.
around, and he stopped in and he met with Father Berkey. And he said, can my daughter come here? Because St. Catherine's had a high school.
Okay.
And Dominican was built and took girls from parishes that didn't have high schools, that had grade
Okay.
school. Father Berkey said, sure, come on over. So my sister went there, just an excellent student, honest to goodness. She never got a B in anything. Graduated first in her class.
Wow.
And wanted to study speech and drama. She could have done anything. And so one of the sisters there called my mom and said, there's a archdiocesan scholarship, and it will pay full tuition at Catholic University of
Oh
Maryland.
my. Oh my.
And the drama club from Catholic U had come to Dominican to do Shakespeare and all of that. That's how my sister knew about it. That's how the sister that recommended Carolyn knew. And so Carolyn got the scholarship. Her tuition was paid for 4 years.
Wow.
So I get to 8th grade. Now my sister's at Dominican, and my parents sat me down. I was happy to stay at St. Catherine's. I was fine. And they asked me, would you please go to Dominican for a year? And if you don't like it, you are welcome to come back to St. Catherine's. So I said, sure. Well, my sister was driving by then. We went to Mass every morning, of course, before school. And we'd get to school. And of course, I just loved Dominican. I loved it. It was energizing, exciting, interesting. And so I was fine there. And so I get up to senior year, and there was how can I say this? An understanding, if you're baptized in Catholic, okay, the best thing you can do with your life, if you're a boy, is become a priest. If you're a girl, is become a nun. That's the best thing you can do. And next thing is marriage. It was almost like a hierarchy. And then the third place is single life. They're all good, but they're rank ordered. So I, wanting to be a good person and actually wanting to get married and have children, and it was clear we were all going to go to college.
Anna. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I felt a compulsion to enter. And it was April of that year, and they took everybody right after, 2 weeks after you graduated from high school. So anyway, my father preferred I go to college first. And my mother and my sister said we probably should have her do what she wants to do. And so off I went. I had no clue what I was doing. And I went because I felt I had to be the best person I could be. And then I thought, they probably won't like me. It probably won't work, but I'll be free. I won't have that worry. Now, that's not a very inspirational way to join a community. It's like I felt I had to. Well, now I look back and I have a generally adaptable personality.
Yes, you do. Mhm.
By gift, not by working at it. And so, one day led to another. A huge grace from the postulancy was I went out to St. Nicholas of Tolentine in August of that year, 17 years old. You know how we all did that, just incredibly amazing. And so I lived with 11 other sisters. There were 11 of us in another postulant. So I got to observe, I got to try to teach. I'm not how sure that all went. But my parents were thrilled. They would come to visit. They brought Thanksgiving dinner. My brother loved it because the nuns fussed over him. He was 8.5 years younger, and we made novenas for him. My parents, I'll get back to the other. My parents had wanted a large family, and the two of us, my sister and I, came along. And then other children were not coming along. So they went to Quebec and made a novena. They went to St. Michael's in Toronto and made a novena. And 8.5 years later, I also went to Mass every Tuesday as well as every Sunday to pray for a healthy, happy baby. So we got my brother, and he's worth every prayer, novena. Everything. So I end up in Chicago, Illinois, and I got to see what it was like on the other side of the novitiate. So when I go back into the novitiate, I wake up that Monday morning, and this also is not very inspirational, but it was the truth. It's the truth. I woke up and I said, Monday morning, 51 more. I can do this. I can do this. I mean, I can do it. Mm-hmm. So life goes on. We go in the novitiate, and I was, I think, really blessed there too, because I got the priest dining room as a, whatever we called it in those days.
Obedience.
Thank you, Peg. And we were like,
Wait a minute, Janet, there was something a lot of us said, whoever got the priest dining room or chaplain, sacristan, were the pretty ones. So perhaps that was it.
Well,
anyway, go on from there.
Yeah. I never felt pretty, but I certainly felt good in the priest dining room because there were I don't know how many, about 150 novices in the novitiate, and those floors.
Yeah.
So we were all together all the time, and to be in that quiet space, it was heavenly. And I could look out at the front lawn, and the priests were lovely, and they each had their ways of doing things. Yeah. And we had to pull their food up on the
deli waiter.
Right, from down below. And that was always an adventure. And it went well. Mother Gerald was not well at that time and across the hall. And so ministry to her, we didn't do it, but seeing the care she was being given was inspirational. So I think that saved me a great deal. And then we stayed in after first profession, many of us that had gone out in order to make up the semester. And that was fine. And blessedly, Sister Rosemary Ferguson was in charge of us, of the junior class.
Okay.
So those days were wonderful. I did get called out once to go to St. Teresa in Detroit. So that was another experience in community and in a school setting. But Rosemary got me back to finish school, to finish that semester. They would have kept me, but anyway. And then off to Florida when we get our first assignment.
That's right, yeah.
I go to Florida. And if you weren't a science major, you pretty much stayed in Florida during the summers. And I was an English major, so eventually I graduated from Barry.
Mhm.
So I went to Fort Lauderdale, St. Anthony's for 2 years. Wonderful people, wonderful sisters to live with, wonderful place. And then I went to Vero Beach for 5 years. So I taught second grade in Lauderdale, in Vero Beach, 5 years, third grade. And I kept writing. I wanted to study psychology. My mom and dad were very intuitive with people, which was wonderful in their professions. And my dad would come home and say, I wish I knew more psychology. Because people would come in, he knew they weren't sick, but they needed to talk. And he just said, I wish I knew more psychology. And I think that's where the seed was planted. So I kept writing Mother Genevieve and kept being reassigned to teach third grade.
Dear.
In 1968, the chapter of
Of all chapters.
Awakening,
Yeah, awakening, right?
came to be. And many of us were sent back to school to go with the Dominican charism of study. And I remember getting a letter asking me to study, to go to St. Louis University. I graduated with a BA in English at Berry. To go to St. Louis University. They were sending 3 of us, and they would like us to get PhDs in clinical psychology. And because we had bachelors and needed to apply to graduate schools, we were asked to get the equivalent of an undergraduate degree in psychology in order to apply. And they asked us to take as much theology as we could along with the psychology undergraduate classes. And we lived in a dorm, beautiful facility built by the Precious Blood Sisters. And they were a lovely community, but also there were women religious from all different communities studying in that building in different areas at the university. So dinner conversations were interesting. Everything was interesting. Studying full time was such a blessing and a grace and a discipline. I mean, I remember reading a book, underlining it. The next day I would go back and I didn't have a clue that I had read it, except I had underlined it. So that's a new learning experience of how to actually study.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And Maddie Reno was the other sister, and Ann Kenny was the other sister. And the 3 of us, we didn't know each other. And, we'd get together, and we were the only Adrians there at the time. And these communities were all over. And then men religious communities all over. And then the other boggling thing was at St. Louis University, they were aware of Vatican II.
That's good.
I'm not sure it had reached Florida yet. I had not.
That's for sure.
I think there were inklings. A sister came that was in a partial habit, however we started to change. And she was teaching something, but it was clueless in the environment or I was clueless. So anyway, a whole new way of praying, a whole new way that was happening throughout our community, and then changing from the habit to regular dress. And the one summer, my sister was pregnant with a little boy that went to heaven right after birth. So he's still part of our lives. But she was pregnant that summer, and she folded up all her summer clothes and sent them to me. And she had sweet notes on them. Wear this way, wear that way.
Wonderful.
So sweet. It was just fun. And so we studied, and I remember losing my faith, because what I was learning in psychology was coming into contact with what I believed, and then Vatican II. And so it was like, well, what do I believe? What is this all about? What is life all about? What is faith all about? So the preaching was excellent. The liturgies were excellent. The understanding of Eucharist was being experienced in a whole new way. So eventually I put pieces of faith back to, that was my first faith crisis. eventually I put pieces back together, and it was more peaceful. It was more enlarging. It was much more in life-giving. And I took one course from Dick Smith, who had been the editor for Religious, and it was the history of women religious. So I walked into that class, and Maddie and Ann didn't take that class. And he did the whole history of women religious in the world. And he was such a wonderful teacher. You felt like your brain could just open and he would pour information in. It wasn't an effort, it was a blessing. He was so gifted and right on the board. And I took notes like crazy. Well, I learned in that class that religious life, how it was formed, and then women's groups and how they came and grew throughout the world. He went over the mystics, the Helfta Galaxy, Mechtilde of Magdeburg, these people I'd never heard of, and in mysticism. And it was so relaxing, but so assuring, because changes were happening, right there in St. Louis. Couples were getting together, sisters and priests were leaving and marrying and or pursuing, religious life. So it was a very fluid connection with very soul-filled people and faith-filled people. So many ways to learn inside the classroom and out. So I just became very relaxed about religious life. There is something, I think, deep in what is occurring that will continue. It's always been different.
Right.
Religious communities have come and changed, and other seeds have grown. But some of that commitment to devote one's life to this ministry and bringing about the gospel, I just think that will continue.
Yes, yes.
So I'm very relaxed now, but it's due to that class, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And
that experience had a profound impact on who you are right now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have no anxiety about that. There's lots
and what's interesting, those of us that have been in your presence or been in whatever with you, you'd never know you were going through something. Maybe the people you were with at the time, you'd never know there was anything bothering Janet Fulgenzi. I know, you have, I don't know if it's a gift or what, but you probably have things in perspective in the now. I mean, you're enjoying the moment that you are in. You love your family. I mean, that is a given with anyone that knows you. By the way, how's that little baby doing right now? The one that we've all been praying for.
The one that we were praying for? Yeah, he's doing really good.
Oh, good.
He had surgery down here, tighten muscles, and he's talking, eating. He's just fine. He's fine.
God is good. The power of prayer and the power of community, too. Yeah. But and even your family, your father was so well known in especially the east side of Detroit, Dr. Fulgenzi, and then there's other Dr. Fulgenzis, male and female. So it keeps bringing up the goodness of that family and the generosity. But anyway, it's your spirit. You have been given a spirit that is very positive, engaging, and welcoming. But anyway, I just needed to say that. Continue. You have a few more minutes. What else do you want us to know about you?
Thank you. And it is, raised in that setting is, I realize more every day what a blessing that is, especially in my work as a psychologist, hearing people's stories. And really, I could tear up right now.
Yes.
I have such respect for my clients.
Yes.
Such awe. I don't know I could that I could walk out the door with some of what they've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so beautiful. So the work is humbling and nourishing. It's always a mutual exchange in a therapeutic setting, really in any setting, because we're all in this together. Anyway, how are we doing with time back?
Well, let's say about 6-7 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right.
we're going to have to do more of this.
Yeah, we are. We need to do another part of it. But, relative to us too, and our participation in our general chapter, just the overall, how did you feel coming out of our general chapter, which we had such a struggle having, but we all became closer, I think, in that whole process.
Right. Well, quickly then, from St. Louis University, I
Yes.
applied to the University of Windsor, and I went there 7 years. That's where I got my master's in clinical psychology and my PhD.
Okay.
And then was fully licensed in Michigan, continuing ed, all of that. And that's what I continued to, what a blessing in that profession, as well as my religious life, has gotten me to where I am. Okay, so I loved chapter. I loved the preparation because there's an advantage to Zoom and being in a room on Zoom with people. I met more people. Our talk was focused and purposeful.
Right.
And I thought the miracle of our women, Peg, you is my provincial. I can't believe the generosity and grace of our leadership.
Right.
Incredible wisdom. I mean, in your patience and compassion with all of us for years, because you got to do more.
Yeah.
So I was very nourished by chapter. I love Adrian, but I thought, what a grace to be in a space where we can't run off. We can't run different places, that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and together. And I thought the facilitators were outstanding.
Yes.
Everything. And when Leonore Esnard called me to be on the women's committee, I loved it. I'd been on the Commission for Women in the community.
Right.
It is a passion of mine. And I think it is connected, as Paul VI said in John the 23rd, that the cause of women is the cause of peace throughout the world.
Wonderful. Right.
Women gain equality. It will change everything. And the history of okay. So anyway, that was very energizing. In working with the other three women was another wonderful adventure. We could talk, we could say anything to try and get the focus and what cream we wanted to rise to the top. So I'm encouraged by the last chapter. I think the statements in the enactments are outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And when I felt the energy in that room, this is going to continue happening. I mean, there's no doubt. We're again blessed with incredible leadership. I just have, and the sisters that have gone before us, just very, very blessed. I'm very, very blessed to be an Adrian Dominican, to be a McLaughlin Fulgenzi, and to be an Adrian Dominican.
Well, and it brought to light, too, the importance of we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us, be it our family or be it the women. And as we're losing some of those people so dear to us, those of us that are around this age, it just brings to mind, it will go on. It's going on. Yeah. And even the new enactments, as long as they might be, but the passion is still there. And as someone said, pick out part of that speaks to you and go for it. Go live it. Continue to live it, because they are living it.
Yes. As well, there are sisters that are praying, because that is the power that still nourishes us.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the awakening circles. I just can't say enough about that.
Mm-hmm.
In helping us with a more contemplative grounding in beauty. And, the booklets were beauty. I mean, we're so blessed. We're so blessed.
And another way to deepen our relationship, and other than, hello, how you doing? What have you been about? And, your family, what's deep within you that we are going to share, that we do share.
We're going to respect, and we're going to respect.
Yeah. We're truly blessed. We are truly blessed. On another aside, away from what you're all about, is there anything that we would say, oh my God, you can't tell me that about Janet Fulgenzi? Is there something about you that you've never shared? Or is there a story from your family that you've tried to keep secret that they tell everybody about you, something you did or were or what?
Well, I'm not going to go there. If you ask them, I'm sure there would be plenty of stories. What I think is interesting is, I'm by nature a blessed person. I see the glass half full. So one of my defense mechanisms against anxiety is denial. Now, Peg, you know the defense mechanism: denial, minimization, projection, all that kind of stuff. Well, I tend to deny something if it's going to make me anxious and just go somewhere. So if I hear myself saying, "Oh, that doesn't bother me," more than once, Shakespeare, "Thou dost protest too much." And so that's one way I get to go deeper into myself, to say what is of concern. Because I may look,
Right.
fine
Right.
and dandy, but that's not always the case. Like another faith crisis, when I went to Israel, lived in Israel with the class from St. John Provincial Seminary when I was on the faculty there.
That's right. I forgot that.
Yeah, I was sent to Italy with 3 other faculty members and was teaching group structure and process to the first class seminarians to teach them to become aware of their own emotions and work in a group to facilitate scripture learning and their own development of their own personalities, their strengths and weaknesses, and how to use their gifts, both strengths and weaknesses. And we got there in in Israel, Tel Aviv. We get on a bus, we're going out, and I start looking around and I said, "This is it. This is what I've based my faith on." This is it. So I looked and I thought, I could have a faith crisis right now. And then I thought, oh, I'm way too tired to have a faith crisis. I just said, this is it. This is it.
Uh-huh.
Take it in and keep learning.
Right. And that you certainly, and you're so engaging and kind and generous and everything to everyone. You are a delight. You are a gift. And I thank God for that gift that have been to me and to all of us. Here she comes. Happiness.
Okay, I have another revelation like you were asking.
Oh, good. Okay.
And that is, I was so anxious about doing this.
Oh.
I put it off.
Really?
And then finally, you were very kind that said, either say yes or no. It's either way. So you were very Peg. And I thought, I mulled over it. I went over the questions. I wrote things out where my OCD comes in. And then this morning, I just said, just breathe and go with it, because you're so easy to be with.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I have one more sentence. Each being is a word of God. God speaks.
Bless you. Thank you.
Well, we're surrounded by word. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
And thank you again for your willingness to do this. So